Good morning. Welcome to Plugged In. We will be in Hebrews and Genesis right after this. Well, welcome back. It is good to be back. I was in Kansas City last Monday for my granddaughter's Christmas program. And so that's why I was not here, but glad to be back with you. Hey, the countdown is on for sure. 9 days until Christmas. About 4.5 more days. Kids are just starting school today, so got a full 5 days of school, and then they'll have a break, and it'll be a wonderful time, wonderful season. I want to invite of you and ask of you to keep those families in your prayers that are going to be sitting around Christmas trees and tables with an empty seat because of the loss of loved ones. There'll be a lot of those this year, as there is every year. And so maybe you've experienced that, or you know someone who has, and keep them in your prayers. It is the most wonderful time of the year, but it can also be the loneliest and the most stressful. So we just want to always be mindful of that and the blessings that we have. I told you we were going to be in Hebrews and Genesis. Basically, we're going to look at a story out of Genesis 27. If you want to turn to that this morning or this week while you're with me, and I'll read it to you here in just a moment. We continue the story of Esau and Jacob. But before we do, let me share this neat little intro for you. So there were these two baseball teams who had came to a deadlock. It was 5-5. It was the bottom of the ninth, but darkness was enveloping the diamond. And so in the last half of the ninth inning, the bases are loaded and the count is 3-2, and the pitcher calls timeout. He wants to have a conference with his catcher. Catcher goes out to the mound and the pitcher says, "Hey, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wind up and I'm going to pretend to throw the next pitch. You take your fist and hit your mitt like you caught a strike, and maybe the ump will call it that way. It might work." Well, the catcher says, "Yeah, that's a good idea." But what they didn't know is the opposing coach at the same time was cooking up his own strategy. And so play resumed. The pitcher wound up and he apparently threw the ball. The batter swung, and there was this tremendous crack of the ball against the bat. Except it really wasn't. That coach had made it sound like that by hitting a piece of wood. It echoed through the park. The batter circled the bases for a grand slam, and the game ended 9-5. The pitcher walked off from the mound. If he'd only confessed that he had failed to throw the pitch, then the batter or the runner on third would have scored on a balk. Both sides were conniving. Both sides were scheming. Let's just call it what they were doing. They were cheating. They were lying. And one came out a winner and one came out a loser. I don't think this is an unfamiliar story to a lot of us. I could actually open up with this question. Do you think that it's fair that someone who cheats or lies or steals gets a reward, gets a promotion? Well, we would obviously think not, especially if it was against us. But then, well, maybe we ourselves have been guilty of not always being honest so that we might gain some advantage. We're all guilty at times of fudging the truth a little bit. Thus enters our story from Genesis 27. If you remember the last time we were together, we talked about Esau selling off his birthright to Jacob. His twin brother, Esau, was the older of the two. Esau had been out hunting. He comes in. He is just worn out. He's famished. He's hungry. And Jacob has been making some stew. And Esau says, "Give me some of that stew. I'm about to die." And Jacob is thinking real quick on his feet, and he says, "I'll tell you what, I'll give you some stew. You sell me your birthright." And Esau's like, "That's fine, not a big deal. I'm going to die anyway. I don't need it." And so the trade happens. When we go into Genesis 27, we find the story of the day that Isaac, Esau and Jacob's dad, gives the blessing. It all starts with him giving to Esau this instruction that, hey, go out and hunt, get me something to eat. I'm getting close to dying, and it's time for me to pass along to you a blessing. Jacob's mom, Esau's mom as well, Rebekah, she overhears this. Esau was Isaac's favorite. Jacob was Rebekah's. So when Rebekah hears what Isaac's going to do, she quickly brings Jacob in and tells him what's going to happen. And she feels like he should be the one that gets the blessing. So they come up with this story that he's going to pretend to be Esau, and Jacob is going along with it, but Jacob does say, hey, there's a little bit of a problem. My brother is a lot hairier than I am. What if Dad tries to touch my arm or something? And she's like, I've got a plan. And so she gets some goat skin, puts it on him a little bit, and so eventually Jacob enters the room. And there's this smell of Esau, but it's not Esau talking. Isaac's a little bit confused. So he eventually asks for Jacob to come over, who he thinks is Esau. He comes over and he touches his arm and hands and stuff. And he's like, well, kind of feels like him. And so then what transpires is that Isaac gives to Jacob, who he thinks is Esau, the blessing. And here's how that goes about in chapter 27, beginning around verse 27. Isaac says this, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and also may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed. Isaac now has given the blessing that Abraham's lineage is going to continue. That blessing, the promise of the father of many nations, is now going to move not through only Isaac, but now to Jacob. And Isaac takes that blessing, doesn't say anything, and he gets out of the room pretty fast, because it's not long till Esau shows up. And when Esau enters the room, he and Isaac have a conversation, and they both find out that they've been tricked. And Esau is begging of his dad to give to him a blessing. And all that Isaac can say to him is this: your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his oak from off of your neck. Esau leaves that place, and he is bound and determined to find Jacob and avenge this. He wants to kill him. Rebekah gives to Jacob that warning, and she sends him off to a relative by the name of Laban. We'll talk a little bit more about Jacob in our coming weeks. But here's what I want to ask you. Do you think it's fair that someone who lied and cheated receives such a blessing? I'm not promoting that you do such a thing. I'm not saying that I always understand why God chose the people that he did, but then all I have to sometimes do is look in the mirror and realize that he chose me, an imperfect person, and he's chose you to do things for him. And he didn't write Jacob off, and Jacob would be blessed among the nations. Esau and his clan would have to serve Jacob. Again, it's not a campaign for you to do wrong so that you be blessed. But it is a story to share with you that, first of all, Jacob was not a perfect man. And yet, on the other side of it, every time God would address anybody, he would say, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And though Jacob was a little shady at times, God was always faithful to him, and God will remain faithful to you in all things. Thank you again for joining us for this week. Look forward to being with you next week. Remember to like and share this with others, and have a wonderful, safe week. We'll see you next week on Plugged In.